Hi and welcome back. This is Nick here again, and I'm going to take you through the student exam experience. There are of course several more features within the platform to tell you about in later videos, but for now let's focus on understanding what the students do in a test situation on Exam.net. Remember that when you are creating an exam, students cannot access it. When you are ready, click the access switch next to your exam as I showed you in the first video, creating your first test. Remember that this will bring up three options. The default setting is closed. You need to either choose open, which lets students start straight away, or discoverable, meaning that once the students have entered the exam key and their details, they end up in a virtual lobby until the exam is opened by you. Note that you can use the closed option if, say, after 10 minutes you do not want further students starting the exam late, but this doesn't end the exam if students are in the middle of taking it. I'll show you how to end an exam in a moment. You then provide the students with the exam key found in the exam list, either on the whiteboard or via Zoom, say. So now let's see how this looks from a student perspective. The students go to Exam.net and enter their exam key. Then they need to fill in the student information which you, the teacher, decided upon when you created the exam in the settings. In this case, it is just name and email address. The great thing about exam keys is that as a teacher, I don't have to create student accounts or deal with students forgetting their password just as the whole class is about to start a test. If a student gets an error message when entering an exam key, I tell them to double check that they typed it properly. That usually does the trick. On the other hand, if lots of students have a problem, highly unlikely though this event may be, I might just have forgotten to open the exam myself. Okay, back to the exam. Next, the students end up in a lobby that looks like this. They will remain here until their classmates have settled down and you open the exam for everyone. If the exam had been set up as open, then they wouldn't see this screen at all, but would enter the exam directly. Now let's switch views and show you what this looks like for me as a teacher. I set the access as discoverable, and so I can now see which students are in my lobby. If anyone is missing, I can check in with them. Once I have the whole class, then I click here to open the exam. Okay, so back to the student view. The students will now be presented with a button Begin Exam. Clicking on that puts the screen into full screen mode. Here we can take a look at what the students see on the screen. One option the students really appreciate is this chat feature. This allows students to ask questions without having to raise their hand and disrupt the class. As a teacher, for you to see student chats, you need to have the monitoring view open. We will talk about that in a later video. The student experience for answering questions is different depending on the type of exam you created. If you upload a PDF of an exam, the student answers the question like this. In the writing area, the students can type their text and format it in pretty much the same way as in a regular word processing program. Other features are, for example, inserting tables or adding special characters. The students also have a formula editor in the toolbar, allowing them to write maths, if you like, in the writing area. Another type of exam is an auto-marked exam, and more details will be given in a separate video. As a teacher, this means you entered each question into Exam.net individually when you created the exam. These types of exams start in the same way, but here the student answers each question separately. This enables two additional cheat prevention functions which are really useful when using Exam.net in the classroom. The first one is that you can randomise the question order. Also, when the student has answered a question, the answer is shaded over, making it impossible for the neighbour to see their answers. You don't need to worry. Students can easily go back and edit their answers by simply clicking on the answer box again. Students usually understand how to answer these different types of questions, whether it be multiple choice, fill in the gaps, or match the answers, to name but a few. And now comes one of the best parts. As a teacher, Exam.net has built-in tools that I can make available to students. There are tools for all different subjects, whether it be maths, physics, chemistry, computer science, language, or social science. We have a whole video later that focuses on these built-in tools. Now let me show you what happens if a student for some reason exits the full screen mode. As the teacher, you will be notified in the monitoring view and depending on the exam settings, the student might have to type in an explanation in order to resume the exam. That looks like this. When a student is finished with their exam, they can submit their answers by clicking here. One of the best features is that when the time is up, as a teacher I can close the exam. I can choose to close the exam for all students, but here I can also choose to keep the exam open for certain students who might, for some reason, need extra writing time. When I close the exam, it looks like this for the students. Okay, so I hope this has given you a good understanding of the student experience. Most of us on the Exam.net team are current or former teachers, and so we know the challenges that come with the classroom situation. We're also aware that things don't always go as planned in the classroom, and one understandable concern you may have is what happens if the Wi-Fi fails. Here, I can reassure you that if the Wi-Fi goes down during an exam, the students can still continue uninterrupted, and we have several alternatives to enable students to submit an exam with no Wi-Fi. More information can be found about this in our troubleshooting video.